Are you ready? Stand by.
Hello and welcome to another exciting episode of the Three Gun Show. I'm Dave Hartman, your host for the evening, or the day, or the morning, whenever you're listening to this. And we have an exciting topic on the podcast this week. My friend Reuben Aleckson from Vortex Optics is back on, and we're here to talk about flying with match guns and match gear and ammo and all that other good stuff, like flying for three-gun matches. And you can also use this for USPSA, PRS, and any other gun-related match that you need to fly with some modifications that you'll need to make on your own gear. So there's a lot of questions that I get asked all the time about flying with guns, and I've only done it a couple times. So I brought my buddy Reuben on, who's done it thousands of times for his profession, and again for flying for three gun. And I think we nailed it. This is a really good episode. It's content dense, and it really just gives you like everything you need to know to make it happen. Other than the one little thing that we mentioned at the end that you need to do yourself. So before we get into that, though, I have two other pieces of content that I want you to listen to first, and these are little shorty blurbs. And one is from me and Reuben, and we're talking about the Wisconsin Three-Gun Championship, the Vortex Three-Gun Wisconsin Championship, presented by American Defense Manufacturing. This is an exciting little development. There's now a Wisconsin Championship, which is pretty cool. So it's fun to see all the states jumping in on it. I remember when we brought back the Colorado Three-Gun Championship in Colorado, I was totally pumped. So good for Wisconsin. And the second is another Wisconsinite. Becky Yackley is on the podcast, and she's going to be telling us about the 2A Heritage Junior Camp and a camp that they're holding at Rock Castle Shooting Center in Kentucky this summer. So listen to those little pieces right there of things that I definitely recommend checking out. And they're good friends of the show. So give them your attention, and then after that, we're going to roll right into this podcast about flying with match guns with Reuben Aleckson. Hey everybody, it's Dave Hartman here, and I'm with my special guest, Reuben Aleckson of Vortex Optics. Reuben, welcome.
Hey Dave, thanks for having me.
It's good to have you. We're here to talk about a special match coming up this year, 2019, and it is the Vortex Optics Wisconsin Three-Gun Championship presented by American Defense Manufacturing. This match is going to be September 14th and 15th. A 2-day match with 10 stages and only $175.
Yeah.
Sounds like fun.
It's gonna be a ton of fun.
Yeah,
we're looking forward to it. I've done local match directing here in the Madison area for the last 4 years. I'm passing it off this year, but nonetheless, a lot of clubs here in Wisconsin that are putting on good local matches. You know, we've got Reuben, Holman, Fort McCoy. There's Schultz down in Muskego where we're going to host this match. Actually, It has a monthly match too, right? So we're actually looking to really bring that major match experience to a lot of the shooters here in Wisconsin who maybe don't get out of state to shoot bigger matches.
right.
And we've got the Nordic Vortex Tri-Gun up in Minneapolis, which, you know, if you're in the Madison area, that's a 4-hour drive. If you're anywhere else in Wisconsin, it's still a haul. But we've been talking, and when I say we, a lot of us who are active in the three-gun community here in Wisconsin, you know, here at Vortex, me, Adam, Travis, Kellen, some of the other guys, over in Holman, there's a good group of shooters there. On the western side of the state, we've got people up at Reuben. We've got all the different clubs, right? We've got a very healthy local three-gun community here. Mm-hmm. We draw shooters from northern Illinois, some shooters from eastern Iowa. And so with that being said, kind of like I was saying about, driving up to the Nordic Vortex Tri-Gun, that's a match that fills up really quick, right? And they have a wait list. So a lot of times shooters here in the state may have to drive to, Missouri or Nebraska or Ohio to get in that real major match experience. And so, in talking with guys like Mark Roth, talking with Jay Hollinsworth, and talking with now Ian Zaretsky, the guy who's putting this Wisconsin thing all together, we feel like it'll bring that larger match experience to the people who maybe shoot 2 to 3 local matches a month here in the state and just don't have the time or ability to get out of state, because even if you've never done it before, it can be a very daunting thing to put together a major match trip, right? Like now luckily 3 Gun Show tells you how to do
I know, we've done
major
several
matches.
podcasts just on that topic.
But nonetheless, it's like, hey, I'm going to Kentucky to shoot this match, and it's going to cost me $1,200 to $1,500 just to go. I don't know how I'm going to do. I don't know anything about 2-day matches.
Well, yeah, and there's that whole mystery of you don't know what to expect when you go. Where do I go sign in? Where do I stand? That kind of thing, and it can be sort of an intimidating sort of proposition for someone who hasn't really gotten into major matches yet.
Yep. Yeah, absolutely. The guy that is really putting a lot of the legwork in for this Wisconsin match is Ian Zaretsky. He just moved here from Ohio, and he had done the Ohio State 3-Gun Championship, or Ohio 3-Gun Championship, and that's a well-respected match now, right? So he's very enthusiastic. He's got a ton of excitement for the sport. He's also a competitor, like many match directors, but he's also head first into 3-Gun, not just being a match director. He's a competitor, travels to a lot of matches. So I think having a match director who has seen other matches and what different flavors are around the country, putting it together is a really good thing. He's a traveler, and so I think that's a great thing. We brought in our friend Adam Maxwell to be the range master, and so really kind of
very cool
input on stage design, safety, squad dynamics, all that stuff, right? And target design, target placement. Adam runs the Jeff Kirkwold match up in Minnesota. He's been involved in all of our local stuff in Madison here since he moved down here, so for the last couple years, and then was very involved in running the Hawkeye Ignite Series 3-Gun matches up in Minnesota. So your range master for this event is a guy that's done probably hundreds of 3-Gun matches in terms of setting up, logistics, running them, so on and so forth. So we're really excited. If you looked at the cost of the event, it's considerably more than coming and shooting a local 1-day match, but there is a prize table, there's a match t-shirt, there's going to be food and beverages on site, there will be vendors set up, so you're getting what we feel like a really good experience and a really good value for $17.50 a stage.
Yeah.
So
so UML rule sets at Schultz Rod and Gun Club in Muskego, Wisconsin. I really like these I guess I don't know what you call them, regional matches or something like that, that are under $200.
Yeah, and I would say that's totally what it is, right?
Incredible value.
It's a lot like a regional event, like the Michigan Multi-Gun Championship, stuff like that. And I think what it does is, like I was saying before, it gives a lot of people who don't have the time, resources, energy, ability to travel to 10, 12, 14 major matches a year. So bringing something to an area where they're going to be able to do that in their backyard is a huge thing. And yeah, the match will probably be 60 to 70% local shooters. I don't anticipate to bring in tons of people from Texas or tons of people from other states, but I think that you will get the occasional person here or there that comes in for the match. But I think that if the match works out how we really think it will, and with the amount of work that we're willing to put into it, I think it definitely could potentially grow into something where it's respected as a national level event. And I think either way, it's going to be a ton of fun.
Very cool. Yeah, and it reminds me of the the Noveski Multi-Gun Championship, which was the Colorado State Championship back in the day. That's where I got started. In the first year of that match, then I shot it all three years. But for me, at the level of participation that I had in the sport at the time, if that wasn't available in Colorado, probably wouldn't have shot a major match for another several years.
Yeah.
So there is the that type of demographic and that type of target market out there that it's going to appeal to, and sounds like they're really going to enjoy this one, especially with the crew y'all put together to be in charge of the match.
Yeah, I think really, one reason that we're in on it as Vortex Optics is because it's local to Wisconsin,
Yep.
and that's our backyard here. And the other thing is, we like, I think, providing experiences for people and being able to make things more inclusive. So whether you look at a match or an event or a scope that we come out with, like the Viper PST 1-6, that scope was something that allowed a lot of people to get into a nicer optic at a lower price, right? Or a Strike Eagle, or however you want to look at it. Even the Razor brings features from $3,000 scopes and brings them into a $1,500 price point. So I think there's a mentality around Vortex here that we want to get more people into the shooting sports, more people into hunting, more people into usage of public lands, stuff like that. And being able to make this event at a cost, the match fee is not very high. And
Yeah.
it's, like I said, it's more than it's more than local matches, but it's less than a lot of people's weekend out on the town. So
Yeah,
I think I think from that standpoint, being able to drive, really it's 5 hours from anywhere in Wisconsin. Like the farthest you'll ever drive if you're in Wisconsin is 5 hours. But
which is
from
entirely reasonable for a two-day match.
From the main population centers, it's really only a couple hours. So and then if you're in the Chicago area, you're really like a 45-minute drive north. Madison, you're about an hour away. And then even from the Twin Cities, it's about a 4-hour drive. So it's really not, up in Minnesota, we've got the Nordic Vortex Trigun, the Jeff Kirkwold match. Well, other than that, you're driving to Missouri,
Right.
Omaha, or, Kentucky, really for what I would call like a big major match. So I do anticipate and hope that we get a lot of shooters from the Minnesota area, and, I think it provides a lot of networking opportunities for people in the Midwest to be like, oh, I didn't know you were here, or meet people that you didn't know were in your area. So
Yeah, it's exciting. It's good. It's good for the local culture to have like a state championship level match.
Yep.
All right. So again, Vortex Optics was Wisconsin 3-Gun Championship presented by American Defense Manufacturing, September 14th and 15th, and it's $175 for 2 days of shooting with 10 stages. There are going to be 5 bay, 5 open terrain stages, and shots out to 200 yards.
And I think that, talking with match director, Vortex will definitely have a lot of input, as will American Defense. I mean, huge shout out to American Defense Manufacturing. The guys that I know over there, like Tom Stewart and Jeremy Katner, those guys are, they're all awesome people over there. But those are the ones that I deal with. And so I think they're very excited as well to bring that into the state here. So I think there will be a lot of input from the sponsors, at least to my knowledge, as to what the stages look like and stuff like that. And if we know anything about Adam Maxwell, he likes to shoot
a lot
more. So I think we are looking at high round counts. Now, if you go to the Wisconsin 3-Gun Championship page, the website, I'll grab it here in just a moment, but if you go to that page, it literally says, in terms of like how much shooting, it says more, like a lot. And that's something that we're trying to do is make it so that this high round count, and giving people the best, bang for your buck in terms of the match and keeping busy. So
yeah, when going to a major match, you always want to feel like you shot a lot more than just 2 club matches stacked on top of each other.
Yep.
And several matches that I've gone to have provided that, and you walk away with like empty ammo cans and just like a huge grin on your face.
Absolutely.
Of all the shooting experience there.
And I think that it's the responsibility of the match director, the sponsors, the staff, to put on an event that is truly customer service oriented. Like, you can check out details about the match at wi3gun.com. That's there's also a Facebook page for it. But going back, I think it really is up to, the match director, the staff, the range master, the sponsors to just give people an experience that makes them want to come back and makes them feel like they're appreciated for giving their money to them. And I think that goes along with everything that Vortex has kind of in our core values.
That's excellent. All right, so if people are interested, I'm guessing it's on Practice Score.
It is on Practice Score, like we said before, UML rules. So
yeah, UML rules, Practice Score, all the big players,
Facebook,
Vortex Optics, American Defense Manufacturing,
Instagram,
and you can check it out at wi3gun.com. Thanks, Reuben.
Thanks, Dave. Look forward to seeing you there.
Absolutely. Hey, everybody. I've got my friend Becky Ackley from the 2A Heritage Junior Camp with me today, and Becky's going to tell us about a summer camp that they have coming up this summer. Becky, welcome to the show. Tell us what you guys have going.
Well, thanks for having me, Dave. The 2A Heritage Junior Camp. For those of you who aren't familiar with it, is it cool if I give people a quick rundown?
Absolutely.
All right. So 2A Heritage Junior Camp is a 501c3, and I started it, roped a few other people into it, but it was begun because my kids had been to a camp, an USPSA area camp. And one of the things that was really awesome about it, Ron Francisco and his wife ran it, and they had it set up without any major prerequisites. They wanted kids who, had basic firearm safety and shooting skills, but you didn't have to have a whole list of everything you've done so far. It was for new people. And we really felt that was a huge thing for our boys to be able to go to a camp where you were brand new and were welcome. So that's kind of the deal with 2A Heritage. Come to the camp, bring your mom and dad. They can hang out. They don't have to hang out. If you don't have gear, if you don't have guns, let us know. We'll help find you loaner gear, and everyone will help you because we want you to come and enjoy it.
I love the concept of the 2A Heritage Junior Camp. I was invited to two of them, and I really like the concept, and the juniors just come away learning so much. So where is the camp this year, and what kind of things are people going to learn?
So this year there is going to be a camp in June, the 17th, 18th, and 19th at Rock Castle Shooting Center in Park City, Kentucky. And this camp is going to be alumni-led, meaning there's going to be kids who have been to our camps before, as well as some who are juniors are no longer juniors, rather, who are going to come. And there's going to be some adults on site to kind of give the oversight and safety aspect of it the okay. And the rooms are on site. So the camp costs $350, but that covers your room. We're going to have meals together. And you just want to bring your guns, your ammo, whatever other gear you need, and maybe some snacks. Come have fun.
That sounds like a great time. So where can people learn more, or where can they sign up for the class if they're interested?
So you can follow us on Facebook. It's 2A Heritage Junior Camp. And then our website is 2aheritage.org. But the registration, the link for it is on our Facebook page. And it is on Practice Score. So all you're going to need to do is get your mom and dad, tell them to get their credit card or give you their credit card. And then you can go sign up for the camp. And one more thing, because I'm pitching that like I'm selling you something. The camps and the organization, so 2A Heritage is a 501c3. It means our instructors are not paid, and none of us who are running in it are paid. So this is our kind of giving back. So there's no David Power comes down and helps out. He's not taking mileage for it and charging anyone. It's just, we want to grow this sport. We want to welcome people who don't have the opportunities that maybe other people do, and we want them to come and enjoy it.
Becky, I love the concept, and it's a great camp, and the ones I've been to have been a ton of fun, and definitely producing a lot of really good shooters out of the camps. So if folks, if you're interested, check them out. 2A Heritage Junior Camps, and we'll see you on the range. Reuben, welcome back to the podcast, my friend.
Hey, Dave, how's it going?
It's going wonderful. We are winding up the my Vortex trip of the winter here. It's getting cold now, so I have to leave. But we figured before I hop on the plane, we should talk about a topic that people talk about in Three Gun a lot, and that's like flying with guns.
Yeah, you're flying home with some guns, right?
Flying home with some guns. Yep, brought some guns here, flying home with them. And this is actually only my second trip on an airplane with guns.
See, when you told me that, I was really surprised.
Yeah.
Just given your state of employment.
Yeah, it seems odd, doesn't it?
Yeah.
And like how much I've traveled for different matches and shows and things like that.
Mm-hmm.
Hard as Hell 2018 was the first match that I've traveled with that I traveled with guns, and I actually had to borrow a case from Aaron Hayes because I didn't actually have one. So
Serious.
yeah.
So that's a little bit of a trip from what like Adam and I do on a regular basis. So I'm glad that we're here to talk about it.
Yeah, pretty
Give
exciting.
you some travel hacks.
I need some travel hacks, dude, because I definitely did not do it right the first time, but somehow went through unscathed. And I think that I won't reveal it to the audience here, but you know what I'm talking about. I think that I went through unscathed because of a piece of advice that you gave me when I asked you, like, okay, so how do I fly with guns? And I'll get into that in just a minute.
There is a secret formula.
There's a secret formula. Yep. And actually works for a lot of things, turns out. So
yeah. We're not going to reveal it till the very end, though, right?
Exactly. Not yet. That's what they call a teaser. Yeah. So all right, flying with guns. So anytime you look up like flying with guns on the interwebs, you basically get like guns and ammo. You get I don't know what all the other major gun magazine articles are now. You get guns and ammo. Maybe you get something from like Truth About Guns or something like that. But it's always flying with a gun, and it's usually directed at like concealed carry, where like your concealed carry pistol and all the ammunition you need for it and your holster takes up the size of like a travel coffee mug.
Yeah.
Right. Whereas in 3-gun, we're traveling with like a stupid long shotgun. We're traveling with a big rifle, big heavy rifle, and then we're traveling with a pistol.
Yeah, so
and all the stuff to go with it.
We're calling this traveling with guns, but really it's traveling with match equipment.
Yeah, there you go. Traveling with match equipment.
Yeah.
So start over.
No, let's hit the stop button and then start over.
We'd never do that.
Really, I've never done that. There's some gear that you can fly with just normally. There's some gear that you shoot with that you can put on your carry-on.
Yeah.
And there's some gear that you would never want to put on your carry-on.
Right.
or not in a lock case for that matter.
Yeah, and it's funny. You see like a lot of Facebook posts about this from time to time, and some of the Facebook posts I see are, "Hey, just found out I can't fly with magazines."
Yeah.
But they just found out like at TSA instead of looking up the
exactly.
the rules.
Yeah, so number one thing, right? Like before you fly with guns, always check your check your restrictions or restricted items with the carrier that you're flying with. So whether it be Delta, American, United, whoever you're flying with, check their website. There are going to be some things that you see that are like, wow, that is dumb. Why would I not be able to fly with that?
Right.
Or why would I have to do this or that or use this type of container or not? Guess what? That's the rules.
Yeah.
And if you break the rules, whether they're stupid rules or not, you're probably going to have an unpleasant experience. You're probably going to have to give some gear to the TSA guy to throw in the garbage in the back room that you don't want to, and it's just not worth it.
And it may result in like litigation, which is not good.
Yeah. No, that's not something you want to do for your own name or for the name of responsible gun owners or for the name of people who are competitive shooters. The other thing you can do, too, before you fly is check with the TSA. On the TSA's website, there's also a list of restricted items, the types of containers that things must be in, and also the amount of things that you can carry with you, such as ammunition.
Right. And you're going to want to look at both of those because sometimes they complement and sometimes they contradict each other.
Yes, they do. They can. I've found that if you're flying a major airline like Delta, American, United, there's not a ton of differences between those three major carriers. Southwest even. And it can be like regional too. Like you might not fly Delta a lot if you're in a certain part of the country,
Right.
whereas if you're in Atlanta, that's probably what you're going to fly, right? So
Yeah, for example, our buddy Josh Freilich, I was talking to him about traveling, and he's like, I always choose Delta because I've never had a problem, and so I just keep doing it.
yeah,
But out west, not a whole lot of Delta.
no, you're flying United or American or
Yeah.
Southwest, right? So I think the biggest thing you can do is take some advice from people who do it frequently, like we're doing right now, is giving some tips and tricks from people who fly a lot. I personally fly a lot for my professional career at Vortex, which is doing dealer and staff trainings, and then also ambassador events and sanctioned shooting events around the country. So a lot of times I'll drive if I can. My general rule is kind of if it's within about 8 hours or so, it makes more sense for me to drive, because then I don't have to go to the airport 2 hours early,
Yep.
fly, get a rental car, sometimes have to have a layover somewhere else. And then when you get there, get a rental car, wait in line for it, the additional cost of a rental car. Whereas if you would have just taken that entire travel day and driven, you would have been there just at the same time almost.
Yeah, which is, it's kind of nuts to think about, but it definitely is like some good math to do. And the other benefit of driving with 3-gun with competition gear is that you can carry more stuff.
Yeah.
You can carry backup ammo. You can even load a friend in the passenger seat, and now you've basically made the economics work in your favor.
And I really want to stress that too. I mean, it looks a lot of the time like, oh, if I'm going from Cleveland to Dallas, right? It's a 2-hour flight or something like that, and it might be a 14-hour drive. At that point, unless you're bringing, the number of travelers really counts too, and how much time you can get off for travel. But it's, if you're like, oh, I'm going to fly out to this match, it's going to be an hour and 45-minute flight. I have a layover in Chicago, and, my whole travel day is taken up by that, just by flying. Even though you only have a 2-hour flight,
Right.
Your travel day could be used driving, and then you don't have to pay to rent a car when you get there, unless there's extenuating circumstances too, like, oh, I have a friend who lives there who I get to stay with him for free, and he's going to give me his extra car for the weekend.
Right.
That's different. But if you're looking to go to a match and there's a bunch of people in your area and you can all get off work, I mean, $300 to $400 for a plane ticket adds up pretty quick, and you add 2 people, 3 people, 4 people, whereas you could have all just piled in and got a super nice hotel, not a motel unless you're in Kentucky, but you could have got a super nice hotel and had just a much more pleasant match experience. But so if you have come to the conclusion that, yes, I will fly to this event, there are some things that I think we can go over here today that will hopefully really make this a lot easier for you. And, taking some of the experience, my experience definitely doesn't just come from my own. It comes from friends like Travis Vogel, Adam Maxwell here at Vortex, my boss, other guys here at work that are on our team, Nick Laufenberg, that we all travel with guns, and we all get back and powwow after we're done and talk about the things that happened or the things that didn't happen, how we can avoid them, and how we can make it better next time.
Right. Yeah. And so my experience comes from basically picking the brains of guys on the range, and my buddy Jeremy Gresham from IWI has some amazing stories about.
Oh, I bet he does.
about flying with guns, and so yeah, he helped me out with best practices here too. So from my perspective, I feel like it starts with the case, like the gun case, right? And then you just pile everything in there. Do you think that's correct, or do you start in a different area?
Okay, so there's 2 types of people in the world. Just 2 types of people.
There's only 2 types of people.
There's the type of person who uses a hard case for everything, and then there's the people who are right and use a soft case and a hard case only when needed.
Yes.
That's a joke, obviously. But, yeah, so if you've got a hard case built up for going to matches and you just absolutely love carrying your guns in a hard case, then get a hard case like a Royal case or a Pelican or insert name of
SKB
case.
is the one I end up getting.
Right? There's multiple companies out there that are doing hard cases. Do hard foam. Don't do the super light low density foam. Get hard foam that's not going to allow your guns to move around a lot. The other thing is, I mean, it does somewhat start with the case, but I think it starts with you looking at the list of restricted items or looking at your airline's restrictions and being like, okay, so here's a good example. Shotgun shell caddies, you don't need to throw those in a case. And
Those
have
can
it
go in your carry-on?
Those can go in your carry-on. Yeah, I should preface that I do not work for any major airline or the TSA.
Yeah.
I can tell you what I've done in the past.
Yeah.
Okay. So
I'll put a nice fat disclaimer at the start of this one.
yeah, so I have flown with shot shell caddies in my check bag. I've flown with shot shell caddies in my carry-on. I've flown with shot shell caddies on my belt and had my belt on the plane with me and as a carry-on item. Never once has anyone asked questions, like on behalf of the airlines. One time, a guy at TSA counter was like, "Hey, what are those things?" And I told him. He's like, "Well, they're not ammo." Okay, no. They're not a gun. Nope.
They're not magazines.
They're not magazines. And
or clips.
they really didn't care because they're not, like, there's nothing sharp on them. There's nothing that can, be disassembled and used as a weapon. So, like, they really didn't care. And I think I explained exactly what they were. I didn't say, like, oh, it's for golfing. I told them, hey, I'm a competitive shooter, and I'm flying out here, and I'm trying to abide within the weight restrictions for the airline that I'm flying, and here's what they are. And I straight up asked him. I didn't try and hide it. I just said, hey, like, can I have these on my carry-on, or can I have these on my belt? And my belt is literally wrapped around my carry-on bag. So, yeah, sure, I don't care. So, I mean, it wasn't like it wasn't standoffish. It wasn't defensive. I just said, hey, this is what this is, right?
Right.
So
I've seen that with mag pouches too.
Yeah.
And in some cases I've seen it with a holster, but a holster draws a lot more attention.
Yep. Yeah, I think by the general nature of what a holster is, it draws more attention. But so to take a step back, look at the stuff that you look at the stuff that you have to check in your bag, put it in one pile, or that you have to have in a locked case, right? Okay. With quote unquote TSA approved locks. Put it in one pile. Okay, so for sure it's going to be your 3 guns.
Yes.
Or 4 guns if you shoot PCC or 2x4 or whatever. But for sure it's going to be the guns. That has to be in a locked TSA approved hard case with TSA approved locks. Okay. Then look at the stuff that doesn't have to be. Okay. Your shot shell caddies, your belt. Depending on how much you want to push it with people, like I have had a holster in a carry-on bag or in a check bag, and that's the other thing too, is when I say check bag, you're talking about a bag that you check in and give it to them, and then they give it to you on the carousel where everything gets lost at the end. The stuff in there doesn't necessarily need to be in your locked case. Then you have your carry-on, which a lot of times I'm just flying with my clothes in my carry-on because I've got a bag full of like magazines, right?
Right.
Like I'll fill my bag full of magazines, my checked bag. You're not going to bring those as your carry-on item, okay?
Right.
But I will fill a checked bag full of magazines, full of other stuff that I need for shooting a match. But and like I wouldn't say this, like, but I have flown to matches and brought like an extra bolt carry group. I have brought extra parts for the guns, right? Like a firing pin spring or something like that, just stuff that
in a check bag.
Yeah, well, typically what I do is I make a space for them in my locked case.
Okay.
Number one, they're kind of expensive, so I don't want to lose them. Number two, if it's not a gun, it can go in your check bag. But sometimes there is some confusion. You get somebody who's less experienced at the check-in counter versus somebody who's been there for 10 years and they know all the stuff that can go in there.
Yeah, I mean, 2 years ago, John McClain gave me a keychain that was like a memory stick that was in the shape of a Rock Island TCM 22.
Yep.
The pistol.
Yep.
And I went through with my carry-on just fine, but I know some people that got popped for that.
Sure.
Is a keychain in the shape of a gun. They wouldn't let them take it.
Yeah.
So it totally depends, and why gamble with expensive parts?
Yeah, one thing you should always keep in mind is that anytime that you decide you want to put something in a carry-on, there is a good chance, if it's a borderline, like maybe I'll get through, maybe I won't, there's a good chance that somebody at the TSA security checkpoint is going to look at that, and sometimes they go, yeah, that's fine. And sometimes they go, nope, and they throw it in the garbage.
Yep.
Right? So if you're like, I could probably throw my bulk carrier group in my check bag or my carry-on, and then you get there and they're like, no,
Yeah.
then that goes in the garbage.
So think
And
of
now
like,
you're-
am I okay putting my bulk carrier group in the garbage?
Yeah, you really have to be, there's some things like you're never going to get a pen thrown away. You're never
Yeah.
going to get, a regular looking flash drive thrown away. You're not going to get a toothbrush thrown away. But there's a chance that if you have an extra, a box and it's got replacement parts for your 2011 in it, it's got springs and hammers and stuff, like you have to be willing to for them to be like, I don't want this dude to assemble a gun on the plane.
Exactly.
Okay, so that's what you're playing with here. Mm-hmm. And that's just, for most people, I think it's just not worth the risk. Mm-hmm. But when you're putting your guns in your case, and whether you have a place do this for you, like cut out the foam outline of the firearm, or if you just have, an electric fillet knife or an electric carving knife, you can buy from Walmart for like $15. Those work really good for cutting foam out of cases too. Mm-hmm. So, you take your brand new Pelican case, your brand new Storm case, whatever it is, Royal case, you set your guns down, you're kind of playing, like you're dry fitting it first.
Yeah.
You're looking at like, okay, what are all the combinations here? You're playing like, not Jenga.
Tetris.
Yeah, you're playing Tetris, trying to fit all these guns in a certain amount of space. And typically what I've done is like, okay, I have like a 56-inch case, I think. So my shotgun doesn't fit in there with the extension tube, but I take the extension tube off, find a place for that to go.
Right.
Okay, my AR, the way that I have it set, doesn't fit in there, so I have to take the upper off of the lower and put them in separately. Number one, don't try and double layer stuff if you're if you have like a typical Pelican case. Mm-hmm. Don't try and double layer it because you want that protection from the foam, but you also want everything to be able to be seen clearly. Now think about this, like if somebody was, if you were getting pulled over by a police or a law enforcement officer and they were like, hey, make sure your hands are, like if you're carrying a gun and you get pulled over, you don't want to like have your hands like tucked down in your shirt. Right. When the policeman comes up, you have your hands on the steering wheel. You're very polite, you're very respectful on how you talk to them. When you get to the checkpoint and you're checking your guns in, and usually it's at the airline counter, and then the airline counter will take them. They're not going to look at your guns per se, or they shouldn't have to. There's some interesting stories there too, but they shouldn't have to. What they should be doing is giving you an orange tag where you sign it and declare that those firearms are unloaded and that there's no ammunition in the case. It doesn't end there, because what they do is they bring those firearms over to the TSA counter. The TSA will run them through an x-ray machine, and it shows if there's ammo in there, it's going to show it, right? Mm-hmm. Like you can't have loose ammo, right? You can fly with ammo in your gun case, but it needs to be in a package, cannot be like loosely strewn about.
So it's like a factory. I think the wording, and again, this is one of those things you're gonna have to look up to double check. This is like in a factory box or box designed for carrying ammo.
Yeah, so if you go to like a gun shop and you buy those, like if you're a pistol hand loader and you
get the little plastic 100 boxes,
plastic case, right? It holds 100, or if it's rifle, it holds like 50. Mm-hmm. You can fly with ammo in those.
Right.
You can also fly with ammo in the box that it came from in the manufacturer.
Right.
What you can't do is you can't take a sock and fill it up with ammo and throw it in there because it conforms to the size of your case better.
And also, what you probably shouldn't do, but I've done, so like do what I say, but not as I do, is stuff 9mm rounds in a 5.56 box and take that home.
Sure.
But I did do it and it worked.
I think a lot of times, and
don't do that. And
I say this with the utmost respect to the people that are working in the airline industry, whether you be working for an airline provider or you work for the TSA. A lot of times it does have to do with the level of experience that person has.
Yeah.
And so while one person might look at that box that says Federal Ammunition or Hornady Ammunition or Peak Performance or whoever it is, they look at that and they're like, oh, it's an ammunition box. Okay, now think about it. Like if the next guy comes up and He sees that and he's like, oh, I have a 9mm. Wait, that box says 223.
Yeah,
Hey,
exactly.
Right. He's going to be more knowledgeable on it. There's a chance that he also might be more lenient because he's understanding of to what it is. But you're kind of
you're testing it.
You're playing with fire there.
Yep.
Okay. And I don't think that anything is really worth getting in necessarily in. I have brought facts. I have presented facts to state my case, but I'm not going to be the guy throwing a fit at the airline counter because I'm right and they're wrong.
The other thing is like in arguments where your argument hinges on you being clever, you're going to lose. And if I'm so clever, this is in a factory ammunition box, and that's what your rules say.
Also think about this: you're not arguing for authority with that person. They've already been given authority. Mm-hmm. It's not like you can present a fact and they're like, "Ah, shucks."
Well, I guess I'll let you through.
I guess I'll let you through now because you were right and I was wrong. No, that doesn't happen. Mm-hmm. They've already been given the ability to make a judgment on something from their employer.
Right.
And so if you push something too far or you push the buttons, there's a chance that it just might not work out for you.
Right.
And that sucks when you're on your way to a match.
Yeah. So, okay, once we've separated our gear into stuff we can take on the air in a check bag and stuff that we have to have in a locked gun case, how do you proceed after that? Got all your stuff in your foam, your guns are in your foam.
If everyone is doing their job correctly, your locked case with quote-unquote TSA approved locks will be brought to an airline.
Do you mean gun case, not suitcase?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Just clarifying.
Your gun case with TSA approved locks will be brought to an airline office. If you're flying with Delta, it's going to go to the Delta office. Flying with United, so on and so forth.
Right. It's
going to go to that office. You're going to go there when you land, and you're going to have to present your ID to get that gun case. Mm-hmm. It's about 50-50 for me, really. A lot of times that gun is out on the carousel when I get there, still in the case, locked. But, yeah, I mean,
So when you say, like, locks with TSA-approved locks, what does that mean?
I really don't know.
Me neither. I just went and bought padlocks and threw them on there, and it works fine.
Yeah, so I think what they mean is they're a lock that has to. So if you have a gun case that has the like grommets where the lock goes through, and a lot of times you'll see that it's just plastic. Sometimes it has a steel exterior on it or a metal exterior. You don't want to have a lock that has a long, I don't know what it would be called, the hinge or the shank, like the shank,
it's called
right?
A shank.
Right. So you don't want like a lock that has like a 2.5-inch shank if you're only trying to lock something that's like a 1/2 inch thick.
Oh, I got you.
So you don't
because then it can open and you
right.
Can
What they don't want is you to be able to open your latches and lift the case open when you have guns in there.
Right.
Right. So the lock has to keep that case from opening. It's not just there to for looks. It has to actually keep the case from opening.
Okay.
If the hinges fail, which a lot of them, and I have every manufacturer of case because we have a ton of them here at work, and I also have multiple cases. They do for the most part. Stay latched. But there have been instances where, whether somebody opened it to see if they could get in it or whatever, I don't know the case. Mm-hmm. But buy locks so that if all the latches fail, everything still stays in.
Yeah, and so, that's the way I've heard it from a lot of people is buy locks commensurate with the value of your firearms.
Yeah.
So if you've got a lot of money in firearms, which most of us do, then buy locks that are going to protect them, right?
Yeah. So then the way that I understand TSA approved locks is that they need to be able to get in them if they run your gun case through the x-ray and they see something in there. Mm-hmm. Okay. I have flown with keyed locks where I give them the key. If they come up and ask me for it, they're like, hey, can we get the key? And I say, yeah, can I come watch you open it? I have flown with padlocks with a dial control on them, right? I've flown with locks that have the little combination on the bottom. Mm-hmm. And I there probably isn't a type of lock that you can go and buy at the hardware store, Menards, Home Depot, that I haven't flown with. And I've never once had it where somebody was like, oh, that's not a TSA approved lock. Disclaimer, somebody listening to this episode will definitely have had that experience where they're like, oh, it's not a TSA approved lock. But
I think where the confusion comes in on that one is there's a lock called a TSA lock that is for a suitcase that the TSA has like a universal key for that they can get into.
Got it.
Right? And so I think that's where people get hung up on it, and that's definitely where I got hung up on it. But I just came back to the fact that like, I'm just going to buy some, padlocks that are going to protect my gear. So
a quick Google search says that TSA approved locks allow the user to lock their baggage and so that it restricts opening.
Okay.
So I don't necessarily know that it's about like what type of key or if it's a padlock or if it's like a combo lock. I think it's so that it prevents opening. So
perfect.
And again, I'm not speaking on behalf of airlines or TSA, but that's what I understand it to be.
We'll just assume blanket that we're not speaking on behalf, and this is just advice given by two normal dudes that
fly a lot,
are enthusiasts and fly.
Cool.
Okay, so you were talking about foam in your case. There's an alternative method, and this is so I told you that I borrowed a case from Aaron Hayes, and this is what he recommended. He also lent me a soft case that goes inside that case. There's no foam inside of it whatsoever. It's that soft case. Your guns go inside the soft case. That soft case goes inside of the hard case.
Yep. Done it before.
Adam Maxwell travels like that as well.
Yep, I've done it before. I can tell you from personal experience, it's really nice because when you get to the range, you have a soft case to use.
Yeah.
I can also tell you from personal experience that it does not protect nearly as much as a case that has hard foam.
I totally agree.
That being said, if you got a day ahead of time when you get to the range where you can check zero and you do have more room. Mm-hmm. Okay, there's more real estate in the case. That's the huge
benefit is you have a ton more room in there.
Yeah, and you can get extra magazines in there. You can probably fit extra ammo in there. That being said, that's an interesting point with ammo, right? Because you're only allowed 11 pounds of ammo.
Right.
I think it's something.
No matter what it is.
Yeah, something like 5 kilograms, but 11 pounds of ammo. That's what you're allowed. Okay, so it doesn't matter how much space you can free up in your case. You can only bring that amount with you when you're flying. Mm-hmm. Rabbit trail here.
Yeah,
you can ship ammo.
That's what I was about to say.
To the range.
Typically, you will see people trying. Sorry, there's a puppy over your shoulder. I keep looking at.
Stop looking at it.
Stop looking at the puppy.
Screwing me up.
Okay, so typically you will see people buy like shotgun shells at the match because shotgun shells are stinking heavy, right?
And
have a lot of lead in them.
There's a little bit more regional standardization.
Yes.
You can go to any Walmart and buy Winchester or Federal or whatever.
Or
bulk pack.
Exactly where your your rifle ammo is specific 0 to your rifle.
Yeah.
Your pistol ammo a lot of times is a load that, recoils much softer that you're happy with.
Yeah. That's a great point. And you can ship ammo ahead of time, even if you have specific. So let's say you're a sponsored shooter and you have an ammo sponsor that wants to send you all your shotgun ammo on a pallet at the beginning of the year. I don't know how many people get a shotgun shells on a pallet, like how many get that many a year, but there's a few of them, right? So let's say you're a sponsored shooter and you can't or you don't want to just stop at a local store when you get there and buy ammo, because you've already been allocated that ammo, which I mean, if I'm being honest, like most of the matches you go to, you're going to have to get ammo there some way, shape, or form.
Yeah.
Right. So
if you fly, for sure.
If you fly, yeah. So, not a bad thing to think about that at the beginning of the year when you're working out your ammo sponsorships, where you want it sent.
Yeah.
Don't have
or
it all sent at home.
If you're a guy like me and you buy most of your ammo,
yep.
Then you can either plan to have the ammo shipped to the range. You can buy, just for example, we know Jake Rillo and Josh Tarrant, right?
Mm-hmm.
Shoot for Peak Performance ammo.
Yep.
So if you shoot Peak Performance also because you want to be like Josh and Jay, then you can just buy ammo from them and ship it directly to the range.
Yep.
And it's the same stuff that you've been shooting. And the same thing goes for Federal Gold Medal Match, Nexus, long range, 77 grain, that kind of stuff.
There's really actually no perfect solution or perfect, I guess, outcome. Like there's going to be matches where they're pistol heavy, and
Yep.
I'd be like, okay, I'm shooting all rifle within 100 yards. I will stop at this store and pick up some rifle ammo, but it's a pistol heavy match, so I really think I could benefit by having my own personal loads, or the load that Peak Performance loads for me, or Atlanta Arms and Ammo, whatever. So you have to look at the match too and be like, okay, should I ship rifle ammo and fly with pistol, or vice versa, or can I get by with shipping a little bit of all of it?
Right.
Whatever works for you, I think.
Well, and this is like one of those small cases where the guy who buys all his ammo instead of loads actually doesn't have a disadvantage, because you can just purchase the stuff you normally do and ship it, or and have it shipped directly to there. You're only paying shipping costs once, instead of loading your buying all the commodities, having them shipped to your house, loading the ammo, and then shipping that ammo to a range.
Yeah. Game, set, match, I guess. There's definitely benefits to not having to worry about shipping ammo, and then there's definitely benefits of having the space to utilize that 11 pounds that you get to fly with.
So I will say that I guess the 11 pounds should be used wisely, and it should be used in like the order of importance, right? So your long range ammo, in your case, your pistol ammo, slugs, if you have a specific slug, because if you've ever gone to a match and tried to go to Walmart and buy slugs, you will be sorely disappointed.
Yeah, I will tell you this too, especially being in the Midwest here. If you flew to a match in Minnesota or Wisconsin coming up this fall, or Nebraska, Illinois, Ohio, most every hardware store will have 5 different kinds of slugs.
Yes.
You go to Idaho or Montana or
Texas.
They're like, slugs?
Yeah.
What's that?
Oh, yeah.
I think we have some of those for home defense, right? Like you're not going to find Remington low recoil on the shelf at a Walmart in, downtown Boise. It just doesn't happen. Trust me, I've tried. And then I went to Cabela's and they're like, well, we usually only stock slugs in the fall because that's when the bear hunters need them. Jeez. Or the bear guides. Or
yeah,
whatever,
and so then you get like the 1,650 feet per second.
Yeah.
3-inch slugs.
No, I agree with you. In the order of importance of the ammo that you're going to need, and also regional availability. Fly with that.
Yeah, for sure. So like know where you're going, and then I guess this would be a good place where you can probably get on one of the Facebook groups and ask, hey, anybody local to this and this match?
Yes.
Tell me what ammo availability is in the stores.
Yep. And as you become more and more apt to doing this, or you become more savvy on the different retail locations in the area where these ranges are located, I can tell you that if you fly to Vegas to go shoot one of Pete's matches, there's Sportsman's Warehouse. They have pretty much everything you need, right?
Oh, really?
Other than like slugs. But I mean, yeah, they've got a great ammo assortment. You go to Dallas-Fort Worth to shoot a match in that area at ETTS or at Jeremy's range, Triple C. Like there's retailers in those areas that have good ammo selection. But I been caught with
ranges like Triple C that have ammunition in their pro shop.
Yeah,
that's
very
cool.
true. So just ask questions.
Yeah,
but we'll keep going on this. So the hard case with a soft case in it does work for some instances. There are times where, if let's say I fly somewhere and I have a rental car, and I can drive to every stage. I don't need a soft case. I can leave my guns in the case, in the hard case, in the trunk, in the hard case, or whatever. So, like going to SUPs for Hard as Hell, and the AK match last year, I just drove bay to bay and had all my stuff in my hard case, and it worked great.
Yeah, that actually works out really well.
So think about where you're going to.
Yeah. So take a little rabbit trail here. The SUPS match where you're shooting the AK, you're shooting the Galil. Is that the same case that you would use for 3-gun, or do you have like a separate gun? You're like, oh, I'm bringing only one gun this time.
There was a time where I had to be a little bit more thrifty with stuff. Very fortunate now that I have a couple of different cases that I fly with. So I have one that has removable foam.
Okay.
So it's the same case, but I can take the foam out and put my soft case in there. Then there's also one that has like fixed foam and you can't take it out. So
I gotcha.
But yeah, if you play your cards right and buy the right case, you can sometimes kind of get by with one.
Right. And that's kind of what I tried to do was I tried to get the biggest case possible that fit within the airline's regulations.
Yep.
That I could fit all my junk in there. And then I came up here, for example, and only brought my shotgun and my pistol. I didn't bring my rifle. So I stuffed the rest of it with podcast equipment.
Yeah. No.
So it works out kind of well.
And I think that like there are certain items that I'm like very confident that I can put in my check bag.
Yeah.
And there's some items that I'm like, somebody might see this as like a little bit threatening, and so I get as many of the items. Like if you have a case and you're like your shotgun extension tube doesn't fit in your hard case, there's going to be times where, you can probably just throw that in your checked bag and nobody's going to say anything. But then if somebody asks you and they're like, what's this? And you're like, what's a shotgun part? They're going to be like, oh, yeah, no, you can't fly with gun parts.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, I know people that have tried to take choke tubes through security, which is
with
that's
your
a
carry-on.
Yeah, that's a shotgun part, so no. But that wouldn't even go in your check bag either because it's a gun part. It would need to be locked up, right?
Okay, yeah. So I typically try and always put my shotgun tube in my locked gun case, right? Locked firearms receptacle. And I think that's just the safest way to do it.
Yeah, I think so too.
Because again,
there's no reason to test that.
Again, trying to get something through, if they look in your check bag, they're just going to take it out and throw it away, or they're going to call you back to security. You have to run all the way through the airport, get back there, and then you have to explain to them that's a gun part, and then they're going to tell you, well, your rifle case is already through security, through the x-rays, it's loaded on the plane, but your check bag is here, so what do you want to do? Your options are A, miss your flight and drive it home, or B, throw it away. So just find a place to get it in your locked gun case.
Yeah.
If it's a gun part, it's really not worth gambling. And again, there's going to be guys that are like, no, I've been flying with my shotgun extension tube and here for years, and I just tell them it's something else. It's like, well, dishonesty is not the best policy.
No.
Here's another tip about like when you have your gun case and whether you have, if you can leave your shotgun altogether and you have a big enough case, great. If you can't, what I like to do is I like to, like in the case of flying with like a Briley tube or a Nordic tube or a Roth tube, usually you can find a way to capture your spring and your followers in the tube, whether it be an end cap or whether it be having something like machining a plastic nut or something out so you can screw that into the female end of the cap. Try and encapsulate your spring and everything in there. That way it stays dust free. You have your followers and your spring in the tube.
And the spring doesn't get smashed.
Yeah, and the spring doesn't get smashed, which is a big deal.
Yeah, that's a very good piece of advice. The other thing I would say is that if you're taking your magazine extension tube off of your shotgun, you will now find that your shotgun easily falls apart when you pick it up by the grip.
Yep.
So maybe don't throw away that nut that comes with it, the cap to begin with, and throw that thing on there. And now
keep your factory cap.
There you go, factory cap,
factory magazine tube cap.
Yeah, exactly.
But yeah, those are just little side tips. But other than that, I mean, have your stuff loaded in your case in such a way that you can easily access it. That's the other reason I don't really like flying with the bag is because it's not organized. It doesn't look organized. You want it laid out in such a way that when that person, whether it be TSA or whether it be, okay, that just brought up a really good point. But you want it so that when they say, "Can you please open the case and show me these guns?" Which again should just be TSA,
right?
But is not always the case. Ask Josh Tarrant about that. When TSA says, "Hey, can you please open this and so I can look at it," and what they're going to do is they're going to wipe it down with explosive detecting wipe, and then they put that in a sensor and it checks it out and makes sure that there's nothing explosive in there. Okay. Well, a lot of times, if you fly with a case that's not organized, what they're going to do is they're going to dig through it because they're going to try and swab everything.
Yep.
And then you're standing back there, and let's just say you got stuck in traffic and you're trying to get through security quickly and there's high wait times. Okay, now you're sitting back in the back room with TSA and you're trying to reorganize all of your stuff. Whereas if it's in a nice, orderly manner and there's a nice place for each part, I've found that it's way easier for them to open the case, swab everything, and shut the case.
Yeah, that's a good point.
I have had them open the case, open my soft case, dig through all that, and they're like, okay, put it back together.
Yeah, and you already did that the night before, right?
Yes. So just be cognizant of that. I think that if you have to fly with more stuff, sometimes that's the only way to do it.
Right.
But a lot of times what I've found is if you have a rifle in there with an optic, a pistol in there, and a shotgun in there, God forbid you're flying open gear. But if you have that, your case is going to be close to the weight limit anyways,
yes.
right? Because you have a 50-pound weight limit. Okay, if you a lot of times can't get a ton of ammo in there.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so that's what's hard, right? Is that you can't all the time get another 11 pounds in that case because it might already be 45 or 46 pounds.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's something to keep in mind too.
So on that, I got a tip from Lan Win, Dissident Arms.
Yeah.
He said that they have they travel with their guns in the gun case and all gun-related gun things, and in their suitcase, which is usually for clothes, but in the three gunners case is for shell caddies and magazines, right? They have ammunition in a locked case, which is also okay.
Mm-hmm.
So
yep, you can absolutely do that. I don't know that it needs to be in a locked case either. I could be wrong on that.
Yeah, I think the locked case is to prevent theft, not necessarily for airline regulation, but I don't know that for sure. We'll have to look that up.
Yeah, so I'm kind of a cheap person when it comes to luggage choice.
Mm-hmm.
Other than protecting my guns, I have very nice gun cases, but I usually fly with like my Nike gym bag as
Yes.
my checked luggage, right? Or insert athletic apparel brand gym bag, right?
Mm-hmm.
So that's like where I throw all my clothes and extra caddy stuff and, pistol mag pouches and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of times magazines in there too. I really should invest in a nicer bag for doing that, but that's just reality of what happens sometimes.
Right.
And I don't believe your ammo needs to be locked.
Right.
I could be wrong on that, but I don't believe I've always had to have that.
Yeah. But the point of that is that if you have really heavy stuff in your gun case and you're approaching that 50-pound limit, you can then move stuff over into your suitcase to mitigate that limit. But you don't get to double up the 11 pounds. You still only get 11 pounds total.
It's 11 pounds per person. It's not 11 pounds per bag.
Exactly, which several people we know have tried to push that and failed.
Yeah, I've inadvertently flown with more, and they looked at it and they were like, we're not going to make you take all that out and weigh it.
Yeah.
What they will ask you is how much does your ammo weigh? Like, I flew the Kalashnikov championship last year. I flew with one gun. I mean, that's the benefit of going to some of these one gun matches is you can have more space for gear. Right. Hornady ammo in the factory 20 round boxes. And I just laid it out around my rifle, and they asked me how much it weighed, and I said 11 pounds, and they were like, okay. My calculations were off.
Oh, really?
Yep.
Did they accept them or did they weigh it?
They took some of it out, and they were like, well, these are each about this, and then they were like, there's 300 people in line behind you, so we're not going to make you do it.
Oh, nice.
But yeah, I think it depends on the day. Like if there's nobody else around, they're going to be like, we need something to do.
Yeah, yeah, that's true. So
but yes, don't try to go over that because you're going to end up throwing it in the garbage. It's a lot cheaper to ship it than throw match ammo in the garbage.
This is true. Okay, so anything that we need to cover, because I do have some audience questions on this topic if we got time to take them.
Yeah, I mean, I think one of the biggest things is honestly ask questions.
Yes.
Okay, ask questions of your peers. Find out there are airports that are known for being easy to fly with. There are airports that are known for being really, really hard to fly with. Ask these questions on the group chats. Do not pay attention to the people that say, "Look at this, it's already been asked 20 times." Just ask the question to people who know, people who do it. If you ever have questions, ask me. I'd be glad to answer questions.
Yeah, for sure.
But no, I think that you can go a long ways with being unassuming and also being very flexible.
I think you're right. I think you're absolutely right. So here's a question. Are some airlines more recommended than others for flying with guns? I will say that I've heard good stories and bad stories about the same airlines.
I have heard and had experiences, both good and bad, with every major airline provider that you can find if you search Expedia, fly from this airport to this airport.
Right.
I've had excellent experiences flying into places that, or flying out of places that were known for being bad. And I've had really bad experiences at airports that were supposed to be really knowledgeable and experienced with firearms travelers. Right. So think also about places that are hunting destinations. Okay. A lot of times
Flying into Medicine was super easy.
Yeah. I mean, not that we're like a hub for hunting or for hunting destinations, but it is an airport in one of the, Wisconsin has like 600,000 or 700,000 deer hunters. So a lot of people are flying into Milwaukee and Madison and La Crosse and Superior to come hunt. So there's, so look at any area that has hunting. If you're flying into Bozeman, if you're flying into, somewhere in Canada that has great duck hunting. I mean, like the places where you go that are known for being like a hunting destination, typically the people there are more experienced with guns because guess what? There's a lot more hunters than there are 3-gunners. Okay, so a lot of times they don't care what you're going to do with the gun. They just care that you're here and you're at my station and I need to get you through safely.
Right.
But to answer the question again, if you ever hear like, oh, fly with this one all the time because they're amazing with guns, or don't fly with this one because they're terrible with guns. A lot of times the power is in your hands.
Yeah, for sure.
As to how the experience goes.
I would also say that like if you're selecting where you're flying to or from, and if you need to make a connecting flight like I did, stop and think for a minute about the friendliness of that connection place. Because if you're traveling in wintertime and like maybe a storm strands you there, and you have to go uncheck go recover, reclaim, whatever the hell they call them, your guns, and you're in Chicago or New York, that might not be a good thing. But if you can choose like a connecting flight somewhere else, like for example, I had the choice between Chicago O'Hare or Atlanta. Chose Atlanta. It was like a 45-minute difference. But I think for me, it was worth like the peace of mind knowing that like, okay, well, if I am not able to make that connecting flight, Atlanta is a much more friendly place for me to go get my firearms.
Yeah, you have a little bit of, I think a little bit of safety because airports are kind of like it's not, let's just say this. If you fly in and did not expect to have to handle your firearms in that airport because of local firearms laws or something like that, at least at an airport, there's a little bit of leniency there,
right,
to my knowledge.
But if you have to leave the airport.
But if you have to leave and go to a hotel and spend the night to catch a flight out the next day, then yeah, you're going to have to deal with that. Or if you have something that is in that state that's illegal to own in that area, and now you're driving to an airport and you go to a hotel, driving to a hotel and you go check in your room and you have those illegal items with you, that's not good.
Right.
And I advise against it just because it's illegal.
Yeah, absolutely. So several people asked, what's an airline approved case? And we already mentioned a few of them. Again, I bought an SKB. I know Patriot cases use SKB. Pelican, Boyd, I know, is one. Explorer case is another one I use.
Flambeau has some TSA approved cases, like you mentioned, SKB. I like cases from there's actually a company called Royal Case, and I've got a few of theirs. I'm a really big fan. But I mean, Pelican Storm cases are awesome. They're kind of the standard.
They
I think
are.
That's kind of the one where if you go flying, 6 out of 10 people will probably have that one.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, and the reason I chose the the SKB was based on dimensions.
Yeah.
And that it was the same dimensions as a storm case that was sold out.
Yeah.
That's how I did it.
So I flew into a southern state, won't name where, but duck hunting is very popular there.
Mm-hmm.
And this was during hunting season. And I was standing at the airline check-in line to fly out. And there was 6 or 7 guys in camo behind me. And so, when you go to Cabela's and you buy a Browning M2 or a Benelli M2,
Mm-hmm.
And they come in like a plastic case.
Yeah, a little clamshell case.
Yeah. So every one of those dudes was flying with that. And they had, no problem getting through security.
You're kidding.
I was like, do you fly with that case a lot? And the guy's like, oh yeah, we flew down and had a hunting trip and flying home. And apparently they didn't have any problems because they had enough locks on them.
Crazy. All right.
But it's also one of those things where you have to think about your gun case is not being handled gently as it's going through all of the security and then out onto the carousel and then out onto the baggage cart and then they load it up into the plane. I mean, I've looked out the window of the plane only to see my case being tossed onto the elevator going up in, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so it's like you have to think that if you buy a case that can't handle a drop off of that when they're accidentally tossing it up on there and it lands on the concrete and it's cold out.
Right.
I mean, think about your expensive shotgun.
Nice scope.
Or a nice optic or a nice rifle or, $5,000 pistol. Like, you have to think about that falling out on the ground. How are they going to case it back up?
Right.
It's much less likely to happen if you have a high-quality case. And you're spending $5,000 on a pistol, $3,500 on a rifle and an optic, and $2,000 or $2,500 on a shotgun. You're talking about $10,000 in equipment. And you look at that case, and you're like, oh, $249 is a lot for a case.
Yeah.
Okay, you're protecting your investment. Like, you get insurance on your car. Okay.
Right.
Protect your gear.
Yeah, for sure. I totally agree.
And it doesn't put the airline employees in a weird spot when your pistol falls out and it's in 3 pieces on the ground.
Yeah.
Because you disassembled it in your case.
Well, and Adam Maxwell had a video recently of them tossing his case onto the conveyor belt, and I was like, well, that was a little rough. And then a minute later, it fell off the conveyor belt onto the tarmac. I was like, oh, that was a little more rough.
Yeah, so just buy a case that can tolerate that.
Mm-hmm. All right, so what added costs are we looking at, including shipping ammo and extra baggage cost?
Well, if you go overweight, right, if you take your Pelican case and you fill it up and you're like, I can get a couple more things in there, and you go to 52 or 54 pounds. I've had them be 51 and they just kind of go, that's fine.
Mm-hmm.
The scale might be out of calibration or something. Mm-hmm. I've had them say that to me. You get 52, 54 pounds, anything over that, or whatever your airline's weight per bag is, right, maximum baggage weight, you're going to end up paying a considerable amount of fees.
Mm-hmm.
It could be another $50, could be another $100, whatever it ends up being. You're going to pay out of pocket to the point where if you have 2 bags overweight, it's sometimes cheaper to just fly first class.
Yeah.
Okay, so think about that, right? Like, if you're riding that line so hard where you're like in your bathroom at home and you hold the case on the scale and then you don't hold the case and you're like, well, it's like 5 pounds over, but it'll probably be good. Just go ahead and book yourself a first class ticket because it's cheaper to do that usually. If it's within like $200, it's cheaper.
I think that's a good point. Someone asked a question about locks, and it made me think like if you're going to have keyed locks, it may pay dividends to have to spend some extra time making sure they're all keyed the same.
Key to like.
So you only have one key for 4 locks?
Yep. So this kind of goes back a little bit to where we're checking in at the front desk, right? But if you make their job easier, airline employees and TSA employees are going to make your day easier. Yeah. So whenever I'm going and buying locks, I have 6 or 7 different long gun hard cases that I fly with on many different occasions. And so, inevitably from time to time, I lose locks or I lose keys, okay? So when you go to Menards or Home Depot or Walmart or wherever you're buying your TSA-approved locks, there's almost always like a pack of 2 or a pack of 4.
Right.
And it says key to like. And you can buy those locks to work all in conjunction with one another. The keys will work for all of them.
Mm-hmm.
It's never really more expensive other than like
No. I just
the time it takes.
I don't like to have
figure
like a
out.
ton of keys. I'm one of those weirdos that like tries to get rid of keys.
Yeah.
And so
I think it just makes sense.
it does. It really does.
The other
Well,
thing
then
too
trying
is
to figure out like which key goes to which one, like when you're in front of security.
Don't buy locks like because they're the cheapest either.
Oh,
Don't-
yeah.
When you're buying locks to fly with guns, think about this. Okay, I've had a couple of experiences where I've had like, the combination locks, like you would lock your high school locker with. Okay, how often do you get that the first time every time? I never do. Okay, it takes me like 3 or 4 times, and then you're back there.
They got to do it
and
under stress.
The TSA calls you back, and they're like, "Mr. So-and-so, please come back here with us." And they're like, "Please open your gun case." And there's 4 dudes standing there, and you're like, "All right, yep, I'll get this the first time, right?" No, you don't get it the first time. You stand there, and it takes you 3 or 4 times each lock, and you have 2 to 4 locks per gun case. You have to have at least 2, 1 in each end.
Right.
Sometimes, if depending on the case I'm flying with, I'll put 4 locks on it. Okay. And now you're making these guys wait for you. It's just not courteous. So get something that you're going to be able to get into quickly, and it'll make your life a lot easier.
Absolutely. The next question here is how banged up do cases get?
They get pretty banged up.
Yeah.
I would say this: if you're buying a case, there could be maintenance on your case, just like there's maintenance on your guns. Okay.
So there is like a cult. We started this off like there's right and wrong people, right? There is like a culture of people having like the perfect foam case for their one gun, and then that case is like really nice and always polished, and it's like a display piece, right? This is not what we're talking about. Like these cases will be abused poorly. They will, they will be, they will fall. They will be scraped over things. Like my case that's that we're gonna be loading up in your truck to go to the airport here is now scratched up really bad from one trip from Austin to here. And that's something that you just have to get over. It's there to protect your valuables, not to be a showpiece.
This could be, depending. Let's just say you go to 10 major matches a year and you have to fly to 7 of them.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, you're gonna probably have to buy a new case every 2 years.
Mm-hmm.
Because the wheels are gonna break.
Yep.
Or the handle is gonna break, or at some point in time, you are at a match and it gets full of sand and full of grit, and then your hinges start getting bad, and then your locks, your latches don't work as well. I mean, like you're dealing with an investment here, so protect your guns, and like just understand the fact that it's a lot cheaper than the ammo. Like your cost of a good gun case is not. It's not something that should be looked at like, well, I can save $30 by getting this one.
Right.
It's like, get the best one for what you need, and it's going to protect your investment. I mean, you're looking at the gun case being less than the cost of match ammo for a major match.
Mm-hmm.
So,
well, and that's the thing is like it's a protective piece. It is the thing that's supposed to take the hit, so your guns don't take the hit.
yeah, exactly. I mean, that's exactly a great point.
Yeah.
Just know that if you didn't have that case there, that your guns would be going through
Yeah,
that.
exactly.
They make the cases rugged because they know what they have to go through.
All right, next question. I don't understand this question. Does TSA flip shit?
Do they flip it?
No, flip shit.
Yeah, I know.
I think he's trying to say, do they like get upset that you have guns? And I would say no. In the small experiences I've had,
We alluded
no
to
big
a
deal.
piece of information at the beginning of the podcast.
Ooh, do you want to drop it here?
I'm not there yet,
Okay.
but I'm just going to say it's related to that. Do they flip out? No. I don't think they do. I think that they can. I'll say this. I've flown out of a certain airport a lot, and I've flown out of another certain airport a lot. I've run into very pleasant people. I've run into people that were probably having a bad day. It changes, okay? And I've employed the same strategy on all of them, and I've found that only one time did somebody get in my face and say, "Look, buddy, we got to get in there. We got to get in the gun case and look at it.
Really?
Yep. That's the only time that has ever happened. And I was like, like the guy's just trying to do his job.
Right.
Okay. Now, I think like with anybody, if you get up in somebody's face enough and you're like rude to them and you're not courteous, I think they probably could get a little bit irritated and maybe elevated. But I don't think they do unless provoked. I really don't.
Totally.
I mean, they're people like you and I.
Exactly. They're people like you and I. They're just people. They're just trying to do their thing and get home so they can be with their family, right? Mm-hmm. And I think some of them, may not quite have the experience with firearms that we would prefer, and they might be a little scared because they don't know. They don't know what they don't know, right? These are inert. Nothing bad's going to happen. You're not a bad person because you're traveling with firearms.
These regulations on firearms travel came out after 2001, after 9/11, right? Mm-hmm. And so keep in mind that at some point in time, somebody who is in their position let somebody through that crashed an airplane or two airplanes filled with innocent people into buildings and killed thousands of people in a terrorist attack. Mm-hmm. Okay. So at some point in time, someone in that position that they held let someone through that did that.
Exactly.
Okay, so these people are trying to...
They don't want to be that person.
They do not want something to happen that has such a terrible negative impact on people's lives, on society, on our country, on our freedoms. And they're just trying to make sure that they do everything right so that something doesn't come back to them being responsible for that. Mm-hmm. And so I think, like you said, they're trying to do their jobs. They're trying to get home to their families. They're regular people like you and I. Mm-hmm. That really struck home when, I'll leave his name out of it, but here in Madison locally, one of the TSA guys shot competition with us. He brought 3 more people over the next 2 years after I met him to shoot competition with us, all of which were TSA agents here locally. And I'll leave all names out of it, but they were just regular gun owning, freedom loving Americans that had to do their job. Yeah. Right. And so I don't think that if you have, when you go through the X-ray machine and if you have something come up in your midsection, I don't think they enjoy patting you down anymore than you're enjoying getting patted down. So just keep in mind that they're trying to do their jobs, and you can really make that experience a lot better by just being courteous.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. I like it. All right, last question. How much extra time do you need for check-in?
You'll learn over time that your airport may be different than other airports. Right. I think it depends on locally what you're, like, we'll say this. If you're going to a match and you're flying somewhere, you're going to fly out of the same airport a lot, your local airport. You're going to fly into that airport a lot. Yep. But you're also going to fly out of many other airports wherever the match is located. Okay, so get familiar with your airport because that's the only one you're going to really be consistently going to. Yep. Okay, I would say that in my experience, I don't think you need a ton of extra time. Now, there is something that can happen, like I alluded to before, where if you, and I don't know if it's random. I guess I've never asked. I don't know if they randomly select people to go into your case or if your gun case exhibited some sort of characteristic that made them want to go through it. Right. Again, I don't know. I've never been told. I've never asked. But 2 out of 5 times after, I go to the airline counter, check in my firearms, check in my checked bag, grab my carry-on, about 2 out of 5 times they'll say, like, hey, can you wait here for about 15 minutes? It won't be longer. If it's over 15 minutes, just go to your gate. But if it's, stay here for 15 minutes because you might get called. Right. There's a chance that they will pull you back in the room and say, hey, we got to open your gun case and look at it so that we can swab it. Or something on an x-ray looked weird, right? I think if you look at how many people fly with firearms versus how many people fly with firearms with magazine tubes and fancy
Yeah.
red anodized parts on them and huge muzzle devices and
Tons of magazines.
right? It's probably a very low percentage
Right.
when we're looking at the people that fly with firearms. Most of them are bringing a shotgun, a rifle with a scope, their carry gun, something like that.
Right.
But there's a lot of times that I'll get pulled back, and sometimes they just come out and say, "Hey, what's your? We need your keys."
Mm-hmm.
And there's a really good way to work around this because personally, if I'm going to a match, a guy might not know what he's doing when he pulls my gun out and swabs it, but I want to make sure that the turrets don't get bumped. I want to make sure that everything gets put back in its place exactly where it was, and so I'll usually just say, "Hey, can I come back there with you? I don't care if I'm the one opening it, but I'd like you to show me everything before you lock it back up."
Mm-hmm.
Because if something comes out of its foam cutout and they just close it and then it gets bumped and it slides out, I have lost small parts out the little gap.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I've lost a firing pin. I've lost a backup set of backup sights.
Mm-hmm. Well, and if something comes out of like the foam and then they just try to close it, won't go in,
Yeah.
they're not going to care. They're not going
They
to
need to
take
get the
care
case
as much
closed.
as you are. They're going to shove that thing down.
Yeah, and
So-
again, I don't want to degrade anybody, but I think there just is
They're
a lack
they
of.
got a ton to do that
But
day.
there's a lack of understanding of what this
Yeah.
gear is used for and how important it is and how much you spent on your trip and your match fee and how much ammo you spent preparing for the match and how much you're excited to see your buddies and all that
yeah.
stuff when you get to St. George, Utah, whatever. So if you do get asked to come back, or if they come out and say, "Hey, can we see your keys, please, so we can get in the case?" I always politely ask if I can come back and just watch what they're doing.
Mm-hmm.
I have never, ever been declined. Now, I have seen guys who go, "No, you can't. I need to be there." And they're like, "Give us your keys or you're not flying." Okay.
Really?
I mean, and I think that's like one of those things where if you say like, "I'm a freedom-loving patriot,"
Oh,
you
yeah,
know, I'm
yeah.
not going to let you tread on me.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, the guy's going to be defensive with you.
Mm-hmm.
If you're like, "Hey, yeah, you don't make a scene out of it."
Because
Number
now
one,
you're acting funny.
right? Now you're now you've exhibited some sort of characteristic that tips them off.
Yeah.
And they're like, "Why is that guy so defensive?"
Exactly.
I have literally, I have kind of a thing I say, like, "Hey, I'm a firearms trainer. I fly with guns a lot. Can I just come back there and make sure that everything gets put back in its spot?" And they're like, "Yeah, I don't care." I mean,
Sure.
sometimes they're a little weird about, "Hey, don't cross this line."
Yep.
But right across the line, they'll do the inspection for you.
Mm-hmm.
And I just watch them, make sure all my stuff gets put back in the right slot and make sure that it gets locked properly. And
Yeah, when I flew out of Austin the first time, I opened it for the ticket counter so they could put the orange thing in there. And then she had me take it over to TSA where they had an X-ray machine right there.
yep.
And before I put it in the X-ray machine, they had me open it again so they could do whatever. But honestly, like the look was like super cursory, like just kind of looking around. They pulled up like
I'm going to be honest with you, Dave. I don't know what that means.
cursory.
Yeah. Swore a lot?
No, just like very basic. Like they
Oh,
didn't
okay.
go too deep into it. They just picked up like a portion of the case and looked under it and saw there was nothing under there. And they're like, "Okay, you can go ahead and put the locks back on." But the weird thing is, that whole line, like you got to stay across the line. They're like, "Oh yeah, stay across the line until it's time to put the locks back on," and then they want you to do that.
Yeah.
So, which I totally get. But the second time I flew,
Keep in mind, too, that there are reasons why they do that, okay? So when you
so you don't have access to the guns, right?
well, when you come to the check-in counter,
Mm-hmm.
you have not yet gone through security.
Right.
Okay, so when they're standing there looking at your guns, they want you standing away from them so that you can't put anything in there,
Oh, I got
and
you.
that you can't grab a gun out and have a round in your pocket because you haven't
Yeah.
gone through any security yet.
Mm-hmm.
So, and it's important to say that because the TSA counter where you go through and where they check you or have you check your guns, or where they check your guns, and then you can put the lock back on. Every time I've done it, it is not. It's at a point in the airport where I have not yet gone through security.
Yeah, same here. So the second time I went through, different counter, different door that I had to take my guns to. There was no X-ray machine there. I just took it into the TSA office, but they had me put it on a like a bar stool that was out in front of the office. Open it right there,
Yeah.
and then close it right there, lock it up, and then he took it through the door.
Yep. Totally depends on the airport.
Yeah.
There's a couple of them that are very, like our Dane County Regional here in Madison they're used to people flying in and out with guns. I mean, heck, people from Vortex are flying out every other day to go to these things, right? So they're like, oh, Vortex shirt, you probably have guns, huh?
Yeah.
Yep.
Yes, I do.
And believe it or not, like you might be pleasantly surprised to find out that when you go back there, the guy opens the case and he's like, these are yours. And you're like, yep. And he's like, sweet. What's that one for?
Yeah.
And I've had guys say, oh, yeah, I'm a coyote hunter. I've been looking at buying one of those rifles. All right, where are you going? Are you going hunting? And I'm like, no, I'm going to a competition. And, they're like, oh, well, that's cool. What's that all about? And then you get to a point where you actually have to, it's like, hey, man, I'd love to talk, but I got to go.
Yeah. Is this going to get on?
So we're going on about this, but I would say that if everything goes well, I mean, take your normal wait times at your airport. They tell you try and get there a couple hours ahead of time, right?
Right.
Add in 15 to 20 minutes.
That's all it took me is 15, 20 minutes.
Yeah, because even if they hold you back to wait in case something popped up, I have had them be like, hey, we had some, trace amounts of explosives showed up, so we had to look in there and make sure there weren't actually any explosives in your case. I'm like, yeah, well, I shoot pretty much a lot. So
I did go into a match, and now I'm on my way home.
Do you realize that there was gunpowder residue on your guns? And I think it's okay at that point to just stare. Just kidding, but I think at that point you just say yep, I'm a competition shooter. Yeah, I just finished up a match and.
Well,
okay, sounds good.
So that's the secret that we're talking about at the beginning is be a nice person, right?
Not only be a nice person, but treat them like they're regular people.
Yeah,
okay,
exactly,
so
'cause they are.
Imagine that how you would treat anybody else, just because they work for the TSA or just because they work for an airline. They're not you don't get a free pass to be rude to them.
Right.
Okay. Because yes, there have been a lot of instances where people have had bad experiences with them. Well, I've had bad experiences at restaurants too, but I don't go in and treat every restaurant worker according to how my last visit went. Right.
Bingo.
I don't say hey, my last steak was overcooked, so I'm going to be rude to you. Even though it's a completely different restaurant, completely different people. No, that doesn't give you a free pass to treat people any differently than you would want to be treated.
Yeah,
and
and
I think
that was
people
the
get
advice
weird.
that you gave me.
People get weird because there's guns involved, and we get very defensive about our Second Amendment rights, which we should always stand firm on and protect them and not waver on our Second Amendment rights. But I think that you can make a really bad impression for gun owners in general. You can make a great impression, but go in. And if somebody says, hey, can you please open this case? Be like, sure. Yeah, I'd love to. I mean, guess what? They're not taking pictures of them.
Right.
They're not to my knowledge, probably they're not doing anything. Writing the serial numbers down. They probably don't even know where to find the serial number because they're just doing their job. I think that if you fly with golf clubs, if you fly with skis, you fly with any recreation equipment, fishing rods, yeah, you're flying with an unusually sized container and usually with locks on it, and there's going to be a reason for them to feel like they should go through it and make sure there's nothing in there that shouldn't be.
Yep.
But my advice is this. When you go to the check-in counter for the airline, very low chance that those people are going to be really knowledgeable about what you do or what you have.
Right.
At least with my experience, and I'm not saying because of the type of people that work there, I'm saying because of my past experiences. So I have had a very low frequency of people that are like, oh, sweet, that's a Benelli, right? No, they're like, here, please sign this. It says that they're not loaded and put it back in.
Yep.
I've had a couple of people say oh, what are you doing, hunting? I'm like, nope, competition shooter. Oh, okay, cool. Well, have a good flight. Sign this and make sure, declare that they're unloaded.
Yeah.
And with TSA, there's a higher chance, at least in my experience, that the guys that pull you to the back room to swab your firearms are a little more knowledgeable and experienced with firearms, or at least with the usage of them. But give gun owners a good name.
Yes.
Give competition shooters a good name.
Yes.
Right? When you go back there, be polite, smile on your face. I even joke now, when I go up to Delta or American or United check-in counter. I'm like, I'm going to be your favorite person of the day. And they're like, oh, great, guns. And I'm like, yeah, but you know what? I'll take the locks off. I'll show you whatever you want to, whatever you need to see, and I'll lock them back up, and it'll be good to go. And they're like, wait, what?
My favorite one, because of the advice that you gave me, has been, hey, I'm really new at this, so if you need me to do something, just tell me. Otherwise, I'm not going to know to do it. And they'll guide you through the whole process.
And guess what? There's also a secret to making your flight terrible and increasing your blood pressure, and that's walking up, being super defensive, asking, why do you want me to open the case? Asking, saying,
show
no.
me the Constitution.
Yeah, show me where it is in the Bill of Rights that you can do this. That's like a surefire way to have a terrible flight, increase your blood pressure, increase your odds of having a bad experience next time, also increasing your stress levels before you go to an event where you get there and you feel like your chi is all off. Okay, so be nice, be personable, be friendly. Smile, say thank you very much for making this awesome. Like Dave said, say, hey, I'm new. I've said this, and I've done it for 5 years. Like, hey, I'm super new to this. Is there anything you need me to do? Look at their name tag. Call them by name. Like, hey, Kelly, is there something I can do here to make your day go easier? You can joke around and be like, hey, I'm your favorite person of the morning. and if they're not receptive to that type of humor at that time of the day, which, may or may not be your fault, but then don't proceed with it. Just be like, all right, well, anyways, just let me know what you need me to do. Kind of step away from it. And when the TSA guy comes up to you and says, like, hey, Mr. Hartman, we're going to need you to come back here. And or if he even says, like, hey, we're going to need your keys, then don't be like, no, you can't have my keys. Just be like, hey, yeah, that's fine. Can I come back there and just to make sure that everything gets put back in the spot that it's in? Or you can even say, like, yeah, I'm fine with a kind of a bag that's not super organized. So, like, I have kind of a certain way that things need to go in there to fly. I have competition. Like, just want to make sure everything is good. Don't be like, no, I'm going to fight you for 15 minutes, but in the end, you're going to win anyways because I would rather go to this match than go home, right? So
let me ask, if you say something like, I have probably $15,000 worth of stuff in there. Do you mind if I come and make sure it gets put in properly?
I've said that before. The one time I said it was, and the guy said, well, you don't trust us with your gear? Like, he's like, we go through stuff all the time. And one guy back there was like, yeah, man, I saw a $20,000 set of golf clubs come through here. I'm pretty sure we know what we're doing. And I decided that.
So it's not the value, it's the
importance of each item that you place on that gear, and just being like, hey, like, I hate to be a pain, but I'm going to this thing and, like, they're making me do this. Like, it's not me, it's not you. It's like, I got to go to this match, and, like, I hate to be this guy, but I got to make sure it's put together. And they're like, yeah, you know what? That's fine. Again, I can't stress this enough. I've never, ever had an experience that I didn't, where I didn't approach it with being courteous, being polite, being friendly, approachable, like thanking them, shaking their hand after it was all done. And where I walked away and was like, man, I tried everything. They were still terrible. Like, no, every single experience I've had like that, they're like, okay, dude's normal dude, just trying to get somewhere.
I think, like most things in life, it starts with how you start the interaction. And when you know me, like anytime anyone asks how I'm going or how things are going, it's always like, great. Day's going awesome. Wonderful. Thanks for asking. No one ever wants to hear about your shitty day.
No.
They don't ever want to hear like, oh, man, I didn't get any sleep last night and I got to deal with you because I got to check my guns in. Like, that's a terrible way to start that off. So when you start off with like, I'm doing great, you've already identified yourself as like a happy person. You're not a scary gun owner, and you're someone who wants to have like an actual human interaction.
The thing that I always start with, to your point, the thing I always start with is, how's your day going? And they're like, oh, it could be better. Like, we've had backups here. We had 15 inches of snow, and so there's people staying at the airport. I'm like, oh, man, well, I hope your day gets better, but I need to check a couple guns here and check my check bag. And they're like, all right, well, sweet. Where are you going? and you just continue on. But there's going to be things out of your control. But it's just like if, in your day-to-day job, if you run into somebody who's having a bad day, you can almost always at least make it pleasant for you.
Or at least
by trying to make it pleasant for them.
Yeah, at least less crappy.
Yeah. And just know that I will say this, you can give me a call if you have issues with flying, but I can say that you're so much better off to just take the polite route. And if everything goes bad after you take the polite route and they still tell you no, you can't come back and watch us, then guess what? That's your option for the day.
Mm-hmm.
I've never had it where you called, you had them call their manager. I mean, what good does that usually do? Because that dude doesn't go okay, well, I'm going to go away and you can deal with my manager from now on. No, he's going to stand there while you have to tell the manager what happened, and he's going to listen to everything you said.
Exactly.
So it doesn't get any better if you take the low road. And then, I think that there's a lot of people that are getting into the sport that pay attention to what other people do and other experiences. I mean, just like people ask, what's the best magazine extension, or what's the best shotgun trigger, or what's the best doodad, or what's it. They pay attention and they listen to the advice of people who have done it before. And if all you do is post online about how terrible your shooting experiences were flying, how terrible the experience was for you to go through airport security, all you're doing is discouraging people from going to matches that they have to fly to.
Right.
And if you're this person that's I do this because I love the sport. I just want to see the sport grow. But all I do is make new people afraid to fly. Mm-hmm. Guess what? You're not doing anything.
And I think
constructive
you're just identifying yourself as a DB, because only thing all those interactions have in common is you. So I think that's a good place to wrap her up, Reuben. Best advice is just to be a nice person and treat people like humans.
Follow the rules. Follow the regulations.
I guess that's another good one.
Be nice, but just understand that people are just trying to do their job and prevent something bad from happening and falling back on them. And I think you could do a lot with a smile. You could do a lot with a good attitude, and it's a small portion of your trip. Focus on the good stuff on your trip. Focus on getting to see your friends that you haven't seen all year. Focus on getting to go to a range that, isn't 10 degrees below zero like it is here right now, which I will be doing in Vegas in a couple weeks. But
nice.
Just focus on the good stuff. Understand that, believe it or not, I'm, as well as Adam and some other guys here, we're on the road, 10, 20, 30 weeks a year, flying to events, flying to get to hang out with our dealers, get to hang out with our customers. And if you asked us what the worst part about flying with guns is, we would not, or the worst part about being gone or whatever is traveling, it's not flying with guns.
No.
Because we've figured that out. It's the only bad part about being gone is being away from our families.
Yeah, I totally agree. And I think the worst part about air travel for competitive shooting is trying to figure out how to get all that gear and still stay under the weight. And I don't think it's the interaction with TSA. It's not as bad as you think it's going to be. It's not as bad as the horror stories you've heard.
It's probably a conversation for another time, but figure out who else is going to the match. Figure out gear that you can share.
Yeah.
Kind of like Adam and I talked on a previous episode. Figure out, do we all run ELS belt? Do we all run this?
Yep.
And try and fly with as little stuff as you can. But there's going to be matches where, hard as hell, you have to fly with all this extra gear. And if you don't know who you're staying with or squatting with, you can't borrow it.
Yep.
So, yeah, just be efficient, pack what you need, and, be polite.
Excellent. Well, Reuben, thanks for doing this this podcast with me. Thanks for the advice you gave me the first time I flew, and appreciate you being here, man. And hopefully we help some people out in their journey.
As always, it was a ton of fun being here. I'm glad that I think we can provide some value for people who are looking to get into the sport or get into the traveling aspect of the sport.
Yep.
And, if you have any questions at all, you can always reach me up. I'm Vortex_Rube on Instagram, Reuben Aleckson on Facebook and everywhere else. So.
Perfect. Thanks, man.
All right. See you.
If you are finished, unload, show clear.